everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Got another news roundup for you guys, as Riot tend to put out a lot of their content over the weekend, which usually means I miss it on my Friday videos, so we're going to be talking about it all today, as there's been a bunch of stuff that has either been announced or otherwise discussed by Riot. Now, first and foremost, wanted to touch on an article that Riot put out about their state of skins and events, which was very exciting for me, as I'm a big fan of most of the skins in the game. Now, first and foremost, Riot have basically recalled that list of promises they made us at the beginning of the year about all the champions that they knew they wanted to get a skin to this year. As it turns out, we are down to the last 3 champions, which are Nautilus, Skarner, and Ornn. Every other champion on that list has received their skin, and they even revealed the Ornn and Skarner skin prototypes that they've been working on. So we can rest assured those two will get one. Nautilus is the only one that we're still waiting on, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And in fact, Riot have said things have been going so well in production that they've added 8 more champions to that list. Those 8 champions are Anivia, Aurelion Sol, Azir, Alawi, Ivern, Singed, Yorick, and Zac. And they even previewed some of those champion skins, so we know, for example, that they are actually going to get one because we already have splash art for it. Among them, we know Singed will be getting a Battlecast skin. Zac will also be getting a Battlecast skin that looks amazing, and I can't wait to see how they pull it off in-game. And Aurelion Sol will essentially be receiving a skin that makes him look like Ao Shin. So now we've come full circle. Ao Shin turned into Aurelion Sol, and now Aurelion Sol can turn into Ao Shin. So that's kind of funny. I do appreciate that little reference that Riot threw in there. In fact, Riot have also mentioned that while they promised to only be able to do 120 skins by the end of the year, they've been going so well that they have upped that promise to 140 skins by the end of 2020. That means that almost guaranteed your main will get a skin this year. In fact, that means only maybe 5 or 6 champions, I believe, are going to be missing out on a skin this year, which is amazing news, especially given that if they're able to continue this train of production, especially going through COVID, which must have made things much harder, if they're able to get it out this year, that next year and potentially every year coming, right, we'll be able to put out at least 1 skin for every champion in the game, which would be really, really cool, and especially a big bonus for all of those who play champions that are not very popular, as sort of you have to wait a long time in between skins. Now, speaking of those sort of not very played champions, obviously Riot had made a lot of effort towards getting them skins, but they are not neglecting their more popular champions as well. A legendary Lee skin, shall we say, has also been announced in the same vein as the Aurelion Sol skin, so you guys can be expecting that to come forward as well. Riot have also talked a little bit more about how they're going to be rating success for skins made for unpopular champions, as in the past they've been a little bit hit or miss. One only needs to recall Dunkmaster Ivern and how terrible that skin was in order to remember that, yeah, okay, that was a bit of a miss. So Riot have instead said they wanted to try and tap into the champion's player base and basically say what makes that champion special to them, what kind of thematics can we give those champions that their player base is actually going to like and that their player base actually wants to engage with, and to even look at skins and try to say, can we get people to engage with the skin even if they don't really play the champion altogether that much. So Riot will be moving forward to look at both purchase rate and sentiment measurements for skins for low play rate champions in the future, so that way they're not just trying to base it off of sales in general, because Dunkmaster Ivern sold pretty well, but unfortunately his mains didn't really like it, though. It was sort of a case of, well, it's the only skin we've gotten, so we may as well buy it because who knows when he's going to get another one. Riot have talked a little bit about their revamped thematics as well. They released 3 new thematics this year: Mecha Kingdom, Psyops, and Spirit Blossom. Riot have certainly said, we think you guys like Spirit Blossom, so that will almost certainly be coming back. And they will have at least 1 more thematic to come out before the end of the year. Now, the thematic is actually very interesting with these sort of flower-decorated daggers in all varying shapes and sizes, so no word on who are going to be involved in it, but I would expect a lot of these sort of blade-wielding champions to make appearances in this thematic. I don't think it is Battle Academia or Project or anything else we've seen before. It is going to be brand new, so it should be very interesting to look at. Riot also touched a little bit on legendary skins here. They did mention that while usually they try to replace all of the animations in a champion's kit when they do a legendary skin, that has become increasingly hard to do so over the last few years as quality has gone up. For example, Amumu has 16 animations across his entire kit, while Set has 159 and Aphelios has 298. as you can see, that would be really hard to do new animations for everything those champions have. So Riot have said instead they want to just make sure that they're putting time and energy into doing something that makes the skin look good and not necessarily touching up every animation. For example, the gun horse that High Noon Senna gets to ride was an example of Riot adding that polish, even if they didn't necessarily upgrade every single animation. And while we're talking about upgrades, Ultimate Skins will be coming back before the end of the year. Riot have announced that they will be producing an Ultimate Skin, and it will be coming out before the end of the year. Riot basically said we don't want to be constrained by having to develop new tech every single time we want to do an Ultimate Skin, because we really want to be able to get behind a really cool idea and basically throw the kitchen sink at it without having to also jump through the additional step of saying, what has this skin done that we've never done before? Now, the new skin that is coming out will be leveraging new tech, and Riot have not ruled that out as a possibility for future skins, but for the meantime, they aren't going to be doing it for every single skin that comes out. They may leverage existing tech to make some kick-ass skins, which I think is totally fine. Gun Goddess Misfortune, I know, for example, got blasted by players, but I still thought that was a really, really quality skin for MF, so I'm happy to see that Riot will be trying to do more Ultimates in the future, even if they're just leveraging existing technology. Finally, Riot touched a little bit more on events, especially the Spirit Blossom event. Now, that was really huge. A lot of players really engaged with it and were a big fan of that event. However, they did say that it was a massive, massive investment on behalf of teams all across League. While it's clear that players would like more events of this caliber, the reality is that Spirit Blossom took almost a full year to produce, and coordinating such a massive event across not only League, but other game teams like Legends of Runeterra can't be done for every event. Now, that's fine. That makes total sense, and I do, think that it is fair to say that Riot can't do it for every single event, but I would also like to say that hopefully this shows Riot that there is still an interest in these big thematic events that they can really get behind. I think this is the biggest event we've had since Burning Tides, and definitely the most popular event we've had since Burning Tides, so hopefully Riot will learn from that and try to continue to raise the bar and to hopefully find ways to do events like this more in the future. Moving on from our subjects here, we're going to be talking a little bit about clubs. Riot did announce that the clubs feature will be getting shut down in the near future. Now, generally speaking, clubs were invented as a way to help players sort of create a community and sort of come together, chat with each other, and generally, hang out without having to necessarily play League of Legends. Obviously, that's probably a good reason to be in a club with someone. You enjoy playing League with them. But generally, clubs were meant to facilitate the sort of hang out, chat it up, and then let's go play a game nature that a lot of communities have. The problem with that is that a lot of other programs have come out recently that sort of do the same thing that clubs wanted to do. I think the biggest thing we can think about is Discord, which has been really, really huge over the last couple of years, and it sort of serves the same purpose as what clubs do. And clubs, unfortunately, is a single feature that vies for attention among a lot of other League of Legends features that Riot are trying to build or update. And clubs, unfortunately, can't just sit around because, as with any technology, it degrades over time and needs constant maintenance. So it's not as simple as Riot just leaving the clubs feature around to keep your club's tag, for example. It very much so is something that they would have to continually work on in order to keep it functional at the bare minimum. So Riot will be sunsetting clubs at the end of this season, which I think has been a long time coming. I can't think of a lot of people who really used clubs that much. It was sort of nice to have the team tag at the end of names, but generally speaking, it was an underutilized feature, and I think it doesn't matter that much that it is going to be getting turned off. Finally, Riot posted today, in fact, a dev article about how they're going to be setting up their item balancing framework. Now, we touched on this a little bit before that Riot said they did want to do some item balancing frameworks in the same vein that they have a champion balancing framework, so that way they can see when items are doing overperforming or underperforming and then balance them accordingly. So that way there is a clear defined set of rules that Riot are going to follow, and that way it's not a generic, well, we think this champion is too overpowered, so let's nerf them, even if the data says otherwise. So I do like this. Now, the problem with items is that, generally speaking, items have different contexts in which they're bought, and that win rate is a very poor measurement of success. Riot uses the example of Medjai Soulstealer, which has an 80% win rate, which seems overpowered. The problem, though, is that Medjai Soulstealer is only ever built after you've built up an early lead, which means that your chances of winning, therefore, are significantly higher. If Riot were to nerf Medjai Soulstealer down to a 50% win rate, it would probably decrease your chances of winning those games if you ever did buy it, because it would not be giving nearly as many stats because it has to be balanced out in that fact. So Riot are trying to figure out a way to balance out these items, and of course, they have built this with the new item system in mind. Now, so the first thing Riot have looked at are mythic items in the rules that they will be following. Riot generally want to make sure that mythic items are not being overly purchased, that one isn't crowding out all of its other options, but also that items aren't falling behind their competition. So the example Riot gave, or that a mythic item would be considered overpowered if it had a 60% purchase rate across users of the item class, or a 2% win rate higher than the average of the other class mythics, and the highest pick rate mythic in class. Now, that's a lot of words that don't mean a lot of things to anybody, but it generally means that if one mythic is being bought a ton and it has a significantly higher win rate than the others, or it just has a high win rate in general, that it will likely see nerfs. Meanwhile, an underpowered mythic item will be buffed up if it has an under 10% purchase rate across users of the item class. So what this means is that Riot will be attempting to balance this out. They have their thresholds, and if any items now cross these thresholds, they'll try to get them back in, because Riot want these mythic items to be flexible. They don't want any one to crowd out all other options. They do want these items to be something you can flex out game to game, build to build. Riot also have a little bit of a addition to mythic items, which is mythic hardbinding, which is something where a champion has to buy this item guaranteed in every single game. Riot have said they want to modify the champion if one or two champions are purchasing the same mythic in more than 75% of their games, or modifying the item if greater than two champions purchase the same mythic in 75% of their games. Now, that means that Riot won't just be looking at the item success. They may be looking at a champion and saying, okay, all this champion wants to buy is this specific item. Why is that, and how can we get the champion to see the other options as more palatable and the other options as actual options, which I do quite like. Again, these items should be flexible. Riot also created a framework for legendary items, which generally are the same. Riot are generally looking at purchase rate for these items, as win rate, as we already mentioned, isn't really a metric they can use. So instead, they're trying to look at the purchase rate of users of the item class. So if a lot of mages are buying Riot's Crystal Scepter, for example, there's a chance that it might be broken. So generally speaking, I think that this is a good approach for Riot to use going forward. I'm not sure exactly how successful it will be, especially in conjunction with the champion metrics that they'll be using. It can be very difficult, I think, to try and balance both of these at the same time, to try and say, well, this item might be overpowered, but is the champion that's overpowered. But generally speaking, Riot will be looking at the items first, and then trying to fix things with the champions later on. If it doesn't matter that you nerf the item, the champion still synergizes super well, or in general is going to be very good. So we'll see how it goes. Again, I'm a big fan when Riot do these updates and when they do set up these sort of frameworks, because it gives everyone a reasonable way to say, is this thing actually broken? Well, let's look at how Riot is balancing it. Even if we don't necessarily agree with their framework, at the very least, we know that they can be following their same rules. So we'll see how that works out at the end of the day. I'm quite excited to see how things are going to shake up. And that's going to be it for me today, guys. That was pretty much all the stuff that the Riot have come out with over the weekend. Let me know what you're most excited for down in the comments section below. I know I'm looking forward to all these skins that will be coming out at the end of the year. I think if you do the math, it ends up being something like 7 skins a patch for the rest of the year. So it's going to be a lot either way. So it's going to be quite exciting. But let me know what you guys are excited for down in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I will talk to you all later.